p.m., so I'd like to call the meeting to order. Before we start the meeting, just advise that this meeting is being televised and recorded. Anyone who's also recording or televising must, Michael Roush from the Enterprise. Remind people to turn off your cell phones, silence them. Make sure I do the same.
I just did.
Okay, we'll start with the agenda. Dan?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we take number 6, the informal discussion of the school committee, out of order and put that first.
Motion made to take number 6 out of order. Do we hear a second on that?
Second.
Second. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Article 6 is an informal discussion with the school committee, which is a proposal to change the access road from Trowbridge Road into the school, the high school and the middle school, to a one-way. Mr. Heidelberg, welcome.
Hi, thank you for seeing me. My name's Chris Hilberg, Bournedale, and also the chair of the school committee. This is something that the facility subcommittee, which is a subcommittee of the school committee, has been discussing for probably 36 months now. And the impetus to this is really just the traffic flow. There's a variety of things that go on if you're unfamiliar with the school road entrance. It was originally considered the back entrance to the schools. It approaches the schools from the teacher parking lot off of Trowbridge Road. And Trowbridge has a marked school zone with flashers, which is very, very nice. And I would say a predominant amount of the traffic comes in through that entrance actually now, due to the population change in Bourne. And the problem with that school road entrance is there's a variety of problems. A, it's very narrow. If you haven't been on it, it barely accommodates two cars. It's also got two fairly substantial curves as you approach to go around the back entrance of the school, the auditorium. And in addition, it also has no sidewalks or bike lanes. And we are having additional pedestrian walkers, if you will, traffic that are coming from Trowbridge Road. And for now, they walk on the road itself, certainly if there's snow or something, that's an issue. But there is the grass area that they can walk on, but that's just not very conducive, especially if it's wet out and so on. So we've been looking at this project for some time. We originally looked at a couple of other options. One was to widen the road. And while that's still an option, it's very, very expensive at this point. One of the biggest problems we have is the one corner by the softball field. It's the main softball field for the school for all those events. And if you're familiar with softball, there's a home team and a visitor team, and the home team the visitor team ends up right next to that road along that fence, and so there's a lot of pedestrians that are just in that one area. That's not really a great place for them. And so we have some concerns to that. In addition, one of the other factors involved is Trowbridge Road, the school zone marking, is actually beyond the entrance. So when you exit School Road onto Trowbridge Road, you're not really reminded that you're in a school zone. And I think a lot of traffic accelerate going towards the rotary well beyond the 25-mile-an-hour school zone that's there. The committee has spent some time looking at other options, also looking at the consequences and the concerns that have been risen, the effects of Catuit Road, the effects of the end of Trowbridge Road, the effects of when Waterhouse joins Trowbridge. Because the idea, and you've got some pictures in the document that are provided, the idea is that all of the campus traffic would exit Waterhouse Road. There would still be ample access and egress for fire and safety. Regardless of whether it's an entrance or not, they'll generally find their way in or out. But being that we'll have two entrances to the campus, that accommodates any fire safety concerns. They don't generally leave as fast as they arrive, I've been told. So the single exit will work. We have some concerns about Waterhouse Road, some of the impacts related to that, possibly working with the state. I'm told that it's a state road and that we might need to work with the state to get that road to be identified as a school zone as well, because it's not at this time. So those are some of the concerns, but we really feel that the margin of safety provided by increasing or changing that road to an entrance only road is substantial. So I just ask for your consideration. This is our first stop. The school committee in its constituted group, the actual school committee voted to proceed with this, and this is our next step.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments from the board? No? this is an informal discussion. I will say that, having attended Bourne High School some 40 years ago, I remember that a number of times during the accreditation process, that School Road was also addressed by the accreditation committee, and it was always cited as a concern, as you indicated, because it's narrow, no sidewalks, and the town had always looked at somehow trying to alleviate those concerns. As you said, very expensive because of the softball field, the S-turn in there. The other issue that I remember from my days on the police department is we actually looked probably 25 or 30 years ago at requesting the state to allow us to build a school zone on Waterhouse Road. And we also asked about putting a crosswalk down close to where Katuitt Road crosses, because we had a number of people walking at that time. I think, you know, Mass DOT has changed a lot over the last few years. I think you'll have a much better reception with them. I would encourage you, as a single member of the board, to proceed with that, and I think you'll have more success going forward on that particular item. But I think that this is a change that's long overdue, and I do think that it's to the best interest of the school and for the students that are traversing that area.
Thank you, Chairman Farrell.
Anybody else, Dan?
Yes, I remember when they put the auditorium on, that one of the concerns was with the fire lane is on the, with the softball field, it would have been very expensive to make it wider than it currently is, and to add a sidewalk, and then one of the concerns was to have the fire lane. I think to enter this as a one-way, they would give you additional space to maintain that fire lane in a pedestrian way. So I think I would encourage you to pursue that for the safety of that as well.
Certainly, those are some things that we'll do, and hopefully run them in parallel, because from working with the state, it looks like we need to get a head start.
And they are, we do have some contacts with them, so if you need any of those contacts, we can certainly put you in touch with those people. But they are much easier to work with than they were in the past. They used to be the Department of No, and if you went to them, it was easy for them to just say no than to actually work with you to try to facilitate some changes. That's changed, so I would encourage you to continue on with that process. I think it'll work. And I think you'll get some good results out of Mass DOT.
Well, I wanted to also introduce Heather DiPaolo. She's actually the chair of the Facilities Subcommittee, who's been working with us for some time.
Right, and I don't know if you, it sounds like you're all familiar with that road, School Road, and if you're not, I would, ask you to just once, just kind of go through and you'll get a feel for it. At our last meeting, the school committee meeting, like Chris said, we did vote to, have the facilities pursue this, and there was a student in the audience, and he said, I don't even go that way. So, it's really is a safety concern, and it's, again, you drive it once and you understand why we're looking to do this.
And unfortunately, that was the site of a
Right,
fatal
and-
accident a number
exactly,
of years
and
ago. So,
Right.
I think this is a right move on your part,
Good.
and we would encourage you to
No,
proceed
I
with
agree.
that, so. But just so that we can do this, it's informal, but I'll take an informal vote of the board just to gauge the support of the board, so. All those that would think that this is a good avenue that they could proceed, could they signify by raising their hand?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
Good
that,
luck.
and
Mr.
we'll work this
Oh.
on parallel.
Can I just add to
Yep.
the conversation? Mr. Heidelberg also contacted my office.
Yep.
I will be developing a staff response. I did talk to the regulatory group on Wednesday, and I will be asking the fire, the police, and the DPW to submit their comments so it could be in support of this, so you have something official from staff members. So I will be doing that as soon as I can.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thank
I
you.
don't know if there are any notes left from that 25 or 30-year-old that we looked into, but that was when I was with the police department, so.
Well, in October of this year coming, we have a fairly exhaustive audit by the New England, by NEASC, which is a very accreditation group.
Right.
And I suspect that will be, will
Okay.
be an issue, so we'll at least have something proactive being done about it.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, good luck, folks.
Yes, and thanks for taking us out of turn. I appreciate it.
Okay, that includes number 6. First on the agenda is an approval not required, Mass General Law 4181P for 357 Circuit Ave LLC, 4 unbuildable lots. Hey, how are you?
Good evening, Joel Kubik with Holmes McGrath from Falmouth, representing the client. As you said, these are 4 unbuildable lots. Currently, there's 1 unbuildable lot there. It's mostly salt marsh. And the client would like to split that up into strips of land similar to the existing lot that's just south of this property. They're labeled as such. These are, again, unbuildable.
We have a view on that, please? Mr. McKenzie, do you have a question?
No.
Anybody else, questions? Just wanted to get an idea where this is.
What's the purpose of the 4 unbuildable lots?
He didn't specify to me exactly.
Has this been before Concon? Yep.
He has had discussions with conservation about an area of use that he wanted to do up by the road, but we're not representing that, so I'm not sure of the outcome on that.
I mean, you're going right through the lot, I mean, the marsh, and creating these 4 strips. It's approval not required, but I'd be interested to know why. I mean, there's obviously something going on behind the scenes here that we'd need to know about.
I mean, there's still property, the existing deed still allows the use of this entire lot for other neighbors in the Patuxent neighborhood.
Right, I'm aware of the
fishing.
footpath
Yeah.
that goes through there.
But that whole lot is under this requirement as the existing deed shows for boating, fishing, bathing, and clamming. And that would go forward with these properties as well.
Anybody else from the board want to look at this?
I looked at it earlier, I'll look at it again.
I'd like to see it too.
Just, there was one thing. Showing a salt marsh.
I can't figure out where this is.
If you go out onto the island
Yeah.
and you bear to the right at the fork,
At the fork? Yeah.
it's on the
Yeah,
left.
there's a bench, there's the
wooden
town owns
bench.
that property right next door here, one lot removed from this property, with
Right.
a memorial area with a bench.
Beach is right there?
That this owner.
Right.
It comes out and it goes around the island.
So this is before you even get to the beach then.
Yeah.
And there's a footpath, okay. Let's send
This
that
is
back
the
around.
area
That's
in
Steve wants,
between,
Steve's got one, okay.
The house right at the end of Island Drive.
Over here. Oh, Island Drive, further in.
When you say beach, you mean the sand spit area?
There's the locus, so.
The public beach area, go past the public beach area.
Past the public,
Yeah, you come
And
past the
it's-
beach.
past the cranberry bog.
Yep, then
Hit
take a left
the-
of the fork,
Hit the fork in the road,
Oh,
take a left.
come down, there's a little bench right.
Holmes and McGrath, is that correct? It's,
and then it
I actually haven't been to the site. I had the surveyors go there. I was hoping you guys knew where it was.
pretty sure I know where it is, but
Okay.
comes
it's
a little
just,
pond at times.
it floods, I know that.
It's completely salt marsh as it's shown on the plan.
He must wanna sell each of.
There is one little high area, but
That's his business.
not.
Is that gonna
It's-
create,
So you don't have no
4 separate
idea
deeds?
It's an
what the
A&R.
reason is
4
to
separate
divide
taxes?
this into,
He
Four
lives right across
strips.
the street right now. I mean, again, this isn't buildable.
approval
This
not
isn't,
required?
I don't know how he's gonna distribute that land or where it's gonna go to. That wasn't part of our discussion with him, so, this was, all we're involved in is creating this plan.
Mr.
I
Chairman,
got
what lot does the owner live in?
357, right across the street. This property is owned by the 357 Circuit Avenue Trust, so.
So if it's approval not required,
right,
what are we discussing it for?
I was gonna ask Corinne. Approval
read
not
that.
Under
required.
81P,
Yeah,
it is established by frontage. If
Yep.
they don't have the frontage and they're creating lots as such as this, they have to mark it as non-buildable lots, which they did, so they meet the criteria, because they're not representing them as being buildable lots. They can do it for conveyance, they can
Right.
do it for easements, they can do it for a lot of reasons other than building.
Okay, that's, would probably be the only reason I could see this, is for some sort of an easement to those other lots that are upgrade from that.
Or assessed value.
Well, it's unbuildable, so who knows? I mean, can't imagine what it's assessed at, not much, I would think.
Any abutters?
Anybody else here want to speak on this? No?
Come on, Joe, you're pretty good at this stuff. What do you think?
Mr. Chairman,
This is America, do what you
It's-
want.
Yes, yes,
can I just ask
Yeah.
Corinne?
yeah.
Corinne, it meets all the requirements for an
Oh,
A
absolutely,
and R.
yeah.
That's, so, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for approval for the A and R for 537 Circuit Ave LLC for unbuildable
Second.
lots.
Motion made and second. Any further discussion from the board? Saying none from the audience? None. Okay,
Mr. Chairman, just,
yes.
you know, in case some of the board members, if you look at the application for the Form A 81P, in the back, in the second page, it gives the reasons and the criteria of signing of an 81P, and is if it's been clearly marked on the plan, not a buildable lot.
Right.
So that's the criteria
and they
that
do say
make.
yes on this, so. Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'll oppose with reservations on it. I don't understand it, and I'm concerned, so. Okay, you're all set.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is a public hearing for a site plan review special permit number 07 of 2015, 9 and 11 Jonathan Bourne Drive. Teresa Battles for a 10,000 square foot fitness center with an existing warehouse building.
Good evening. For the record, Zach Basinski, professional engineer, Bracken Engineering. Here this evening on behalf of the applicant, Teresa Battles. Also here joining us is the applicant's builder and architectural group, the Conserve Group. As mentioned, we're here this evening to request the approval under site plan review and the approval of 2 special permits in accordance with sections 1233 and 4722 of the zoning bylaw to construct a 10,000 square foot healthcare facility. I'd first like to start off by going over the general overview of the project locus, some previous permitting on the site, and then review the proposed project. So as for the project site, as mentioned, it's 9/11 Jonathan Bourne Drive. This was an existing developed 5-acre lot off of MacArthur Boulevard. It's located in the Heritage Commercial Industrial Park. This was originally permitted in the late 80s / early 90s and received a special permit at that time. The existing buildings on the site were designed and permitted in the mid to early 2000s. As for the existing uses on the site, they're currently comprised of 4 different uses. There's an architectural engineering firm, AECom, and an awning building. Both of these uses are located in the smaller building, the 10,000 square foot building. This is known as number 9 Jonathan Bourne Drive. The larger of the 2 buildings is 11 Jonathan Bourne Drive. Current uses are Yukon Charlie's, which is a manufacturing company, and Global Interconnect, which is a manufacturing company. Both of these facilities make up about 35,000 square feet of the existing 45,000 square foot building, which leaves about 10,000 square feet, which is what Mrs. Battles is looking to convert from the existing warehouse into the healthcare facility. We have, again, we are looking for 2 special permits in the site plan review. All the work here is predominantly inside the existing facility and consists of the conversion of the existing warehouse facility and the fit up. The only external changes to the building are the removal of some overhead bay doors. These will be converted into windows, and then the parking lot striping on the site. Site plans have been submitted showing that we meet the adequate parking in accordance with the zoning, and we actually exceed it by 29 spaces. All other aspects of the site plan review, landscaping, open space, drainage, building setbacks, aren't being changed, and it's all in accordance with the previous approvals on the site. With that, we have reviewed staff's comment letter. There were some comments regarding screening of existing dumpsters and some on-site storage, signage, sorry. We will address these in accordance with the zoning bylaw prior to final occupancy of the building. And with that, we'll turn it back over.
Okay. Who had this? Steve?
Me.
Yeah. Oh, Joe had it. Okay. Joe?
Yes. Well, Mr. Chairman, I visited the site. I met Tom Donovan there doing the work as well, and they were proceeding under permit in anticipation of getting approval. As Zach said, there's no changes to the building. or the site. In anticipation of bad weather, Tom has already done the striping of the parking lot. So he's ready to go on that. Meeting with Tim, it does meet all the criteria. There's really no problems with it. The place is well kept, well managed. There's ample room for signage and parking. They should be all set.
Okay. Comments from town planner's office? Anything?
Tim reviewed this and he went over it with,
Joe?
I forgot your name, Joe, sorry.
Really really on set.
And it's like basically what they said, it's basically interior. We did have one question in the beginning, if it tripped the Cape Cod Commission because of the 10,000 square feet. We did look into that. It does talk about private health and private recreational, and the threshold is exactly 10,000. So if they were 10,001, they would have to go to the Cape Cod Commission. But they're right at the 10,000, so
Okay.
it does not trip that threshold.
Okay, further questions or comments from any members of the board? Steve?
Is this gonna be a fitness center for the public, or it's,
Mhm.
okay. And is it gonna, I know some fitness centers now are doing 24 hours. Is this gonna be open 24 hours,
No.
do we know?
Nope.
More traditional?
More traditional, 5 to 9.
Okay.
Anybody else from the board? Mr. Clegg?
Are there two entrances to the facility or just one?
There's 2 entrances, an ADA access on the side of the building, and then there's the existing steps that go up from the front.
Which one will be the main entrance?
There's a set of steps there.
Most people mainly use the steps going up inside.
Closer to the
Yep.
parking? Okay.
And they're gonna, where they're removing the garage door, they're gonna have the other entrance.
Okay, anybody else? Anybody else from the audience? We hear a motion, Joe?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the
Site
plan.
plan review and the special permit. The special permit deals with
Use.
the use. Okay, strictly use. Okay, we can do it on one vote then, both site plan review and the special permit. I have a motion, Joe, to approve.
Yes.
No
Second.
conditions? No conditions, other than the dumpster screening, and you've already addressed that. Okay, a second from Mr. Doucette. Any other questions, comments from the board members? Seeing and hearing none. From the audience? None. Okay, it requires a roll call vote. I'll start with Mr. Clegg.
I vote yes?
Mr.
Yes.
Yes.
Doucette?
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, you're all set. Thanks, Zach. Let's see. Next is public hearing for an amended site plan review and a special permit, number 03-2-13B, for 50 MacArthur Boulevard, Battles, to remove 8 parking spaces for an addition to the rear of the building.
Yeah, you gotta take both of them, 4 and 5, because one's for impervious surface,
Okay,
they just applied for it
and-
afterwards.
Okay, gotcha. And article number 4, or item number 4, is for 50 MacArthur Boulevard for an alternative surface with this addition to this. Sir?
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Dan Ojala. I'm a land surveyor and civil engineer with Down Cape Engineering in Yarmouthport. With me is the builder, Roy Catagnani, and some of the members of the Battles team are in the back in case you have any questions from an operational standpoint. This is, we feel, a very modest change. You'll probably remember a few years ago we came in, Jeff bought the kind of eyesore of a gas station to the north of this, closed the 2 curb cuts, greened up the whole strip, and made that stretch of the boulevard a lot more attractive. And working in that spirit, he's done the majority of all the upgrades that we'd shown on the plan. And this is the canopy was on the south side of the building there for service, a big part of the upgrade, working with GMC to dress up the building, which Roy has done. And as part of that, some of the service and detailing bay out back that they've been using for very many years needed a little bit of updating. So there was a modest addition put on the back of that that's shown as existing. And then now what we're looking to do is modify the stripes so that the professional drivers can maneuver the cars in and out of that bay. So there's 3 spaces being eliminated on the south And on the north, we do have to bump out a future bay there. That might take place, a little ways out, but we'd like to get the permit in place so that can be done soon. That one is going to affect a few stripes on the north side, as you can see from the drawings. One of the interesting things about a car dealership is that you have a tremendous number of spaces available, and then there's always the balance between the car stock and how many are available to the public. To that end, Roy has marked up one of the other site plans with, you can see there, the Ds and the Cs, so customer spacing is all delineated. The parking calculations are in the lower right there. There's a few more generated now than before, but all the handicap spaces, customer spaces, and then all are shown, and then all the rest are marked as display spaces. And, GMC requires them to have a bunch of them in stock. Everybody wants the colors and the brands. So, but we'll work hard to keep those customer spaces available and open. And we've had some conversations with them lately about how best to do that, and have been working at that lately. We feel it's a very modest proposal. Again, it's just in the back. You may recall there's a school building way off to the west. There's no residences directly near where we're working there, so there would be virtually no impact to the neighborhood. The lighting was all the low levels. We handed in the lighting plan before, and that was found by staff to be acceptable. Tim buzzed through this and had a few points. We had basically goes through the nuts and bolts of what we're proposing here, but those two the small addition and the modest change to the south. He noted that the drainage O&M had not been passed in. We did drainage calculations with the prior submittal, and I can certainly, if you want to have it as a condition, submit an operations and maintenance plan for the owner to sign as part of this approval. The building commissioner, Roy tells me, did make a finding that it's a 25-foot setback to the rear because there's no residences there. Nonetheless, the building is, I think, 37 from the line, so it would meet that in any event, the new addition to the north. The lot coverage was, it's only about 10% by buildings, and the minimum usable open space, if you look at the other sheets that we'd done, was about 25.7%, so well in excess of the 20. You're taking about just a little tiny bit of change here, as the addition you can see is over a paved area and gravel. So would appreciate us getting a de minimis call on that as we clearly make the open space requirement. Again, he points out the building setback with respect to the school, but Roy tells me he's had a conversation with the building commissioner, and the 37 is okay, but in any event, but the 25
I want to amend that just slightly, if I may.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's Roy.
Roy Catagnani from Conserve Group. I think he's referring to our permit issued by the building commissioner with respect to the previous edition, where he found that the addition is not abutted, there's no residential property abutting the addition. There are residential properties further up along that property line, I think to the north, but not abutting the addition. So at the time when he granted that permit, he found that the 25-foot requirement was not in play. And so, in fact, this building addition proposed tonight is further away than that.
All right, so that corrects that. And we'd point out we're being good neighbors. We've left the fence well off the lot line there, and that's been in place for many years. Certainly the abutter can speak if they have a mind to, but I recall at the last meeting that we worked with them to keep the light levels low and keep that fence in its current location. So that's the nearest residential abutter. And again, it's very modest. The almost the identical arrangement has been working for very many years. They pull in there and make the turns and get in and out of the building with the detailing crew. It's just professional drivers. We don't have the general public back there trying to make any of these maneuvers. It's just a modest bump out and a couple little changes to the back. We sure would appreciate you looking at this and giving us a pro-business approval, and I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Okay. Steve, you had this one.
Yes, this one is mine. I've made 2 site visits to the lot, so to get a handle on this. And there are a number of concerns I have after making those site visits. And in no, in no particular order, I'll just point out some of those concerns. If we look at the north side of the plan with the display lots, it's indicated that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 spots. See what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Now, when I was there today, 8 of these 9 had 3 trucks displayed in each spot. And over to the right, where there's sort of a right angle, there were, I think, 3 trucks in this area. Sort of in the middle of the plan where this light fixture is and a drainage area, there were trucks parked in this area. In the gravel areas in the western side, it looked like there were maybe employee vehicles parked over here. Now, get into the addition that's currently going on in the proposed addition. That would ultimately eliminate 8 spots. And those additions would call for an additional 5 parking spots. So really, the net result of that is a loss of 13 required spots. I did walk on between the building that's where the building is going up now and the lot line, the school department lot line. And from the building to the lot line or thereabouts, there's a significant drop off about maybe 12 to 15 feet. It's almost like a cliff. If anybody fell off that, they could hurt themselves. And that concerns me, not because anybody's gonna fall off that, but that concerns me because it doesn't appear that as this building is going on, there's any erosion control or silt-in considerations going on. And it looks to me, if that area is just left as it is, there's the potential for some significant erosion. And that's town property. So I have a feeling if a neighbor lived here, that neighbor might be here and have some significant concerns. And since it's town property and we're a board, I think we have to voice those concerns as it relates to that erosion. I did talk to Tim on several occasions and spent quite a bit of time with him. And I think he sent to somebody, maybe Roy, a memorandum with a number of these issues. Another issue based on the use of it as opposed to what we see on paper is access of emergency vehicles. I mean, the lot, when you go there, has way more cars than is depicted on, way more vehicles depicted than what we would see here. And my concern is emergency vehicles getting through. And that is one of the decision criterias on a special permit. And there are technical considerations. My concerns would probably be alleviated with, you know, a positive recommendation from the fire department that, you know, emergency vehicles can negotiate these turns and the way the property is being used doesn't pose a hazard. And again, that is one of the criteria for approval. So I think that that's something that needs to be addressed. What I would suggest is that the memorandum that Tim sent out, that you take a good look at that and maybe make revisions to the plan that address those concerns. Because it doesn't, I know you said it's a modest change and we're just eliminating a couple of spots, but it's not really what's going on down there. It's this site, as far as from a development standpoint, it is to the max. And you know, a display spot is, I think from, as supposed to be for one car, and there's 3 in just this one small area. So those are my concerns. I would suggest that you review the memorandum, you review the criteria, the 1238 criteria and the 1331 criteria, and maybe come back with a plan that addresses those concerns.
Sure, if I could address some of that.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that it is an extreme slope in the back, but you'll notice it's a dense, wooded area. Then it leads out to a ball field that's quite distant. So, we're not dealing with any direct abutters, but certainly, I think perhaps if the board conditioned it that we stake the lot line and put a silt fence in, and then put some riprap on that slope, it would stabilize it. We actually was looking through the file and had a structural engineer make a recommendation for that. And that's something that could be done quite easily and would make that slope very stable. With respect to the fire department access, one of the things to remember about a car dealership is that it isn't, the Cape Cod Mall parking lot where you might have a lot of people going to every single car. These are display vehicles, and a lot of people will, cruise the lot with a vehicle, but you're not going to have the sort of, shopping cart, somebody hitting a person with a shopping cart or those kind of accidents in a dealership. This is more of a, an outdoor display area. That being said, we absolutely would keep all these aisles open. I think that the plan that you have in front of you demonstrates that, and that would be enforceable by the building commissioner or any other zoning enforcement officer. If there's cars parked where they aren't, it's a letter to the owner, and then you could probably fine them $300 a day if he had an issue with it. That's why we come to the board, why we carefully thought out the plans, why we show the turning radiuses, and lay it out in a manner that is safe for the general public. So I would think that between, and I did get a copy of this late today, but I did go through it, and that was the basis of my comments. Again, a lot of it is, relatively positive, and thought that things were in compliance. But there was a question about the building setback, the erosion control I think we've handled, and I would say that they do a fairly good job with respect to keeping the place open. If there's nowhere for somebody to park, a car dealership will start to lose money, and that's always something that they're cognizant of. But we can work a little bit harder at that, and it seems to me that perhaps with some riprap and condition for a roof drywall, you could approve this, and then we'll work with Tim to button that up, and wouldn't have to go through the exercise of another hearing. Did the fire department have a chance to make any comments? Do you know? I didn't hear. Was it submitted to the?
I haven't heard anything from him.
Yeah. Well, I do think we dealt with them in the last one. Again, as we got rid of a gas station with all the tanks and closed up all the curb cuts, greened it up. Very positive, I think, for the town, and would appreciate any deference you could have to a couple of these minor items.
Mr. Doucette?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, on the static display what they have in the northern part, where they have those 9 lots and they're 3 deep.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can put it on the plan to show that that would hold 2 or 3, because those parking spots are in the back, and like you say, they're static displays, and the other ones along the MacArthur Boulevard wouldn't have to be open, because it would be up to the employees of Battles to have to move the vehicles out of the way to get the one that hit the test drive. So, to make that additional parking, and if it works, that's fine, but, just to show, so then we know the numbers and we know where you're gonna park.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know really why we didn't stripe along that island there, but it's very logical to add 4 or 5 spaces on the west of that middle island.
Mm-hmm.
There's certainly some more you can do, and it's the kind of the funny dilemma about a car dealership. I've done a few of them, and it's many spaces, and then there's what's about 10 for customers. It seems like, but we'll work hard to make sure we get a good balance. But if and obviously the fire department is not a life safety with an empty car. It's would be just property damage if one were ever to, God forbid, get hit by lightning and catch on fire or something. It's just a property damage thing. It's not a life safety.
Mr. Clegg, you had a question, a comment?
What was the date on the memo from Tim? When did that go out?
Well, it went out today, but in fairness to Tim, the original plan that was submitted in the original application was wholly inadequate to do what he needed to do.
Sure.
And this plan that is stamped and considerably more detailed came in this week.
January 25th, it looks like it says, yeah.
So the applicant hasn't had a chance to see Tim's.
No, we did get them this afternoon, and that's what I was basing some of these comments on. You know, obviously, we could, you know, make other little edits and come back. We were hoping for an approval, you know, based on just some modest conditions of the silt fence, put some riprap on that swale, and work with Tim to get the O&M plan in. But it's the board's call, you know.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
The plans have to be in before noon on Monday before we can hear it on Thursday, correct?
Supposed to be.
Correct, but we had
72 hours.
insufficient plans.
That's what I'm
Usually-
saying.
Usually it's revised plans that you come in that we
Right,
just can
right.
comment, but it was basically a new plan,
Yeah.
so we really didn't have time to.
Exactly. You know, and I think it's unfair for the staff and for the person who's reviewing it to get it on a Monday late, to be able to properly go through it and try to make all the corrections here at this meeting.
Okay. Mr. Lucetta, is that in form of motion to continue this?
This is what was originally submitted.
Right. That's,
No dimensions, nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion, we continue this.
Second.
motion made and second. Further questions, comments from the board?
One question.
One question?
Time?
Time,
Yeah, I need a time waiver and, I need a date certain.
For advertising?
while we're getting that paperwork together, is there any questions or comments from the board? From the audience? No? Okay, I would concur with Mr. Doucette, and I think all the board members here. We rely on staff to do a lot of this review, and it's not fair for Monday, and then here we are Thursday. This isn't the only project that I look at during the week. Corinne's pulled most of her hair out. She has a little bit left, but, you know, it's a department of two, and sometimes if somebody's out, you know, it's just not fair, and that's why we have the rule in there that, you know, 72 hours in advance, so. We have a motion to continue this. We have a second. I'm gonna need a waiver signed by you, or somebody, one of the representatives, and we'll continue this to a date certain, and that will be our second meeting in March, ma'am? Is it?
March?
I mean, February. Hey, I'm hoping.
Man, you wanna get through this winter?
February, so we'll be
25th.
20,
I can do the 11th or the 25th.
11th? Can you get everything in by the 11th?
Certainly can.
Okay, and
Yeah.
make sure it's in the Friday before and not the Monday?
Just for the record, I think that was understood between Tim and us, that Monday was okay, and as you
Okay.
noted, we got it in exactly in accordance with the
Okay.
request. And the reason for the plan being amended was the issues that are mentioned in his letter.
Right.
We got most of them.
Okay. I understand. I mean, I think we need to see some of those, how you're gonna handle the roof drainage, things like that, that aren't on the existing plan.
It'll make it easier to condition, sure.
Okay, so have them sign that?
Yep.
Somebody sign this waiver,
Yep.
time restraints?
Just sign both lines, please.
February 11th? Is that right?
Yeah.
11th, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, this matter, again, before we do continue it, I'm just gonna say, we appreciate Battles being in town. They've always been a good neighbor. We wish them all the success, but we do have a couple issues that need to be addressed, so we appreciate you continuing this. We will continue special permit 213B for 50 MacArthur Boulevard to February 11th, 2016.
Do you need a vote on that?
We will. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, folks.
Thank you for your time.
Can I make one of that, please?
Oh, yeah. You need this and this. And next on the agenda is the remand from the courts for the Eustace definitive subdivision. Mr. Fitch, good evening. You certain may.
I hope we'll make this
Quickly.
simpler, quicker and simpler.
Good, how are you?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Then, lastly, I know you probably remember some of those circumstances, but you can't possibly remember the details. I only have a couple of these, but
You can leave that one over there for Steve. Thank you. We can share one.
actually, this just shows the
Thank
road,
you.
but they're all a little bit different, but they show what's gonna be important to our very brief discussion. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm John Fitch, and I'm here on behalf of the abutters to this very small project. If you recall, it was a creation of one new lot, one new building lot off Eustace Lane. Your decision is dated, I think, September 23rd, 2014. And again, as you recall, that was quite a period of time after the original application was filed. This is a matter of family, of abutters, of promises, perceived promises, expectations. It was a matter of change to a little neighborhood. Your decision was September 23rd, 2014. Abutters appealed that decision in October, and I'm very pleased to say that this process tonight is the conclusion. This is the end. Negotiations took place. Obviously, the board was named as the defendant, but the parties in interest were the abutters and the landowners. There were lots of negotiations, lots of discussion, and as I said, it was family and abutters. A lot of things got resolved. Everything that has transpired and the reason we're here tonight is all with the full assent, consent, and approval of your attorney, Bob Troy. This is not going to trial. It's ending tonight. And what we are asking the board to do is to look at just one little piece of your decision. That is section L on page 2, A, small a, where you approved a waiver of the width of pavement from 20 feet to 16 feet. Actually, and as I recall from staff report and all that sort of thing, you did that on your own initiative. But what we are going to ask, and that's what I said, with this total agreement that you did everything right. You exercised your discretion, and what the applicant, the neighbors would very much appreciate, and the reason we're here tonight is to ask if you would consider using your discretion to change the reduction in the width of that pavement from 16 to 12. And I'll explain. What we're talking about is Eustace Lane. And that, if you recall, is the existing paved way access that comes off Scraggy Neck Road and will service the new lot. Currently, using that road are two properties. They have the legal right to use it. This would make a third. That's the extent of the total possible use for this road. It exists, it's in good shape, and it is 12 feet wide right now. I checked with the fire department. The widest vehicle that is used in the community, including the mirrors, is 10 feet wide. If we examine the road as it exists right now, it has shoulders. They're about 2 feet. They're grassed and they're solid. We're asking that the whole thing be left the way it is. If it were to be widened by another 4 feet, it would require the removal of 27 decent-sized trees. And the plea of the people who are here tonight, whom I'm representing, and the landowners, is that the flavor and atmosphere that is existing right now is desirable by them. They would love to leave it that way, and they recognize that you balance the need for good access versus the need to preserve vegetation, and you're guided in your regulations both ways. There's always that conflict, and that's what requires the balancing, and that's why we recognize this is completely within your discretion. I have a lot of time that I personally lived in Sagamore Beach. I love that area because it's narrow roads. The narrowness makes people slow down. I even know for a fact there that there are several roads that are only 8 or 9 feet wide. They're the width of a blade on a town truck, and they serve 8 to 10 houses without any safety compromising. Those are, I wrote them down here, Mayflower and Priscilla Roads. If you know that, they serve, it's a dogleg that connects Bradford and Williston. It's a town road, and it's only about the blade of a large town truck, at 8 or 9 feet. This road serves 7 homes. Holland Road is another dogleg, and it serves 10 homes, and it's 1 car width wide. And Williston Road Extension is very similar. It isn't that this kind of thing is not unknown, and I know what you try to do. I know what your charge is, and I respect that safety. Down here at Eustace Lane, as I said, there are only 3 users, and there aren't going to be any more. There's no more land left. 1 more house is going to be added. What a narrow road does, and this is why the parties want it to stay that way, is it makes you slow down. It makes you pause. And if you're passing somebody, you stop and you might wave to a neighbor. It can work. I live on one myself, and I very much enjoy that feature of it. It slows you down. I wanted to point out that we were scheduled to meet a few weeks back, and unfortunately the meeting had to be canceled. The gentleman, Chris Wilder, who's most affected by this, he came here to be here that night from London, and he had a head cold. And that's how much he wants, or he believes in this kind of thing, and he wants you to please reconsider that. If you did it, it would simply be to leave the existing road the way it is, preserve those 27 trees at what we assert is no compromise to safety or your responsibility to the public. We'd like to leave it that way. That would solve the whole situation. We're down to that within the family, within the neighborhood, and there are some other people here who'd like to support this, and I'd like to give them a chance to speak. And the last thing I want to point out is on the black and white sketch, no, they're all black and white, the one showing the solid line for the road, on the approved plan, it shows that stretch coming right off Scraggy Neck Road. You see where the arrow says proposed widening?
Yes.
The widening on the plan only begins at that point, so that the first stretch of the road seems to remain at 12 feet. And it's from there on that we'd like to see it at 12 feet.
Okay.
Do you have any
Well-
questions for me?
You lied, you said you'd be quick.
Well, I'm trying. Wasn't I
Is
quick?
there anybody that's not for this?
Any, who had this? Anybody from the board review this?
No, just the whole board.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board?
I'd like to hear from the audience.
Yeah, I'd like to
All
hear
right.
from them too, so.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Up here, sir, because this is televised and recorded, we need you at the microphone. Plus, the camera wants to get a nice picture of this.
My name is Fred Eustace. I'm a resident of Scraggy Neck. I'm actually here representing my two sisters who were the official abutters who filed the appeal of the ruling back in September. There's been a lot of discussion in the last year within my family with the Joneses. Eleanor Wendell is here. She's a Jones. We've had a lot of controversy. Actually, the controversy goes back for more than just a year.
Oh, we know.
Yeah, I know you know. We've finally reached the end of the controversy. And in fact, I was very pleased that my sisters actually decided to drop the suit and simply make a request, because they feel very strongly about the driveway issue. And I know that Chris Wilder feels very strongly about the driveway issue. And as I understand, both my sisters and Chris have essentially decided to drop the appeal and simply make an appeal to the board, to you, the board, to keep the driveway the way it is. I've been driving up and down that driveway for 55 years or so. And again, I'm very pleased that my family has finally worked these issues out. The Joneses can move forward and sell their property. I'd like to leave it the way it is. So,
Thank you, sir. Anybody else from the audience?
Hello, my name is Michael Markov. I'm the attorney who represents the Joneses, actually Eleanor Wendell, Stephen Jones, and Edie Jones in the Superior Court appeal of the approval of the subdivision plan. My clients are very happy that we're at the end. They do support this this request. They're appreciative of the fact that the subdivision was approved. They do support the request that Attorney Fitch has made on behalf of his client, and we hope that you grant it. I just wanted to note that in the original notice for the last hearing, it listed the address as, I believe, 676. It's actually 678, but I don't think anybody was confused by that.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you.
Eleanor Wendell is here also. She's a little shy, but she does support this. And if you'd like to hear from her, she can let you know that herself.
She can nod. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other questions or comments from the board on this?
I just have a comment,
Yes.
small, but, you know, on the road, I can appreciate the 12-foot width. My only concern, and this should be your concern too, when you have an emergency and there's that 10-foot wide vehicle in the road fighting a fire or whatever, and now the ambulance needs to go by or some other piece of apparatus, you're stuck. And I've had a similar emergency at my own place, and there's no time to act when it happens. It has to be there in place. I don't know if there's room on that even to leave a spot for a secondary vehicle to pull off to the side without doing the whole road, but that would be a concern of me if I live there.
What I wanted to mention is that there are 2-foot shoulders on each side that are usable. I mean, they're flat, they're grassed, and they're stable.
Yeah, so
Except
maybe it could happen, but that may be one of.
We've all considered that. And
Okay. Mr. Doucette?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, similar to Joe's concern, I don't know if there was any discussion. I don't mind the 12-foot width if it was one way. I don't know if there's any discussion on that.
Well,
When you plow,
yeah, no, it can't be one way.
Can't?
It doesn't work one way. There is another access from the other side, but that crosses their private property. That's just a driveway. It's not part of the road. I wish I could say otherwise, but no. But it's still, it's 3 houses at the most.
well, normally what the board historically has done, when you get a second house, we make this to the regulations for the subdivision to build the road to that second house. We give you the first one to the driveway, the second one needs subdivision standards. But this is coming back from the court, it's a little different, and so just some concerns that I had, that's all.
I was gonna add, John, that, correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, probably 6 or 7 years ago when this probably all started, I was on the police department, Dan was on the fire department. We actually took the largest truck that the fire department had and tried to traverse that road. If there were a fire there, there would be no way for that truck and a 12-foot wide road to make a turn onto any other driveways, period, the end. And that's what we have to look at, is the safety of not just the residents in the area, but for the whole area, because fires do spread. And that was one of the concerns that we had at the existing time when we did this, is that 12-foot, yeah, we could go up there if another car came, and yes, there are shoulders there, but during inclement weather, you know what happens when you drive on grass, especially a truck, it's going down. I don't know how the board feels on it. I know the area, patrolled up in that area as a police officer for 35, 40 years. It is a quaint little area, but unfortunately, once this was subdivided and another lot went in, as Mr. Doucette indicated, our regulations require that it be upgraded to our subdivision regulations. We did compromise in that 20-foot width down to the, what was it, 16?
Yeah.
16. I don't know how the board feels on it. As a former public safety official, I have concerns of reducing that and leaving it down to the 12-foot width.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
I
Doucette?
remember chauffeuring you in that fire engine
Yes.
to make the turn, and one of the concerns we had was coming out of the driveway, not from the first turn off of Scraggy Neck Road, but we came to the end, there was a tree right in the corner.
Right.
That
And that's the
prevented.
private area.
The private road prevented a right turn or an easy left-hand turn into the property. So, I know there's 27 trees you wanna save, but we might be able to save 26. So it might be, because that.
Well, if there were one tree that was in the way, we'd happily, as you can imagine.
Coming out of that private
Yeah.
driveway onto Scraggy Neck Road,
The private
right
driveway.
there,
Could you?
It was
right there,
at the top, if you're going.
right here.
You're coming from
Oh,
Scraggy
right
Neck
there,
Road.
onto where the new road, the new
Right.
turnaround is gonna be.
Right.
See, that's where the.
No, yeah, the Scraggy Neck,
See,
Scraggy
that
Neck,
doesn't exist.
okay, yeah, no, I'm trying to
Just-
come back into Scraggy Neck Road, where Eustace comes,
Here's
You have to look
Scraggy
on the-
Neck.
You have
Yep.
to look on the big diagram.
Eustace, here's the only driveway right now that
hold on,
goes.
where's, he comes in, and then with this road comes
Yeah.
out, and then there's a turn back on here.
Yes.
Right.
So
But
this
that's-
comes down, turns,
that's private.
and this right-hand turn, right up there.
That's not a,
An option?
no. I think that's Jones' property, where you're pointing out.
It is.
But it's not part of the subdivision.
Right.
But if that were a tree that, in the interest of overall safety, I think we could work that out.
That was the one concern, because coming in or out made it very difficult off
Yeah.
of Scraggy Neck. Like Mr. Grillo said, if you have a problem with a vehicle parked in the center, to get around the other direction, to make access, if one comes in off of Scraggy Neck on the proposed road,
Yep.
and you have to come around the other side.
That's on, may I use this?
So many different plans here,
No.
right there,
Yeah, that's where you're talking.
right here. There's a tree right in there, right on the corner.
That's where it comes back out again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not actually part of the subdivision road.
But it's secondary access.
Certainly, I mean, if that were something that you said, get that done, and we'll, I'd certainly go back to make it. It's nothing I can talk about because we were only talking about here to here.
Right.
Right.
But we
This- this is-
expanded that.
Yeah, this is the property, and if there's a tree there that should
That,
go.
that was the
I have a
only one.
question.
And that makes it better overall.
Okay.
Boy, I'd be.
All right,
The
let's,
curve you're talking about is the back driveway. That's not what we're talking about.
no, we're
No,
just
it isn't,
talking,
but
right.
what they're talking about is a way to resolve this.
The overall access.
Yeah.
Mr. Fitch,
Yes.
you might be able to answer this, but where they have this hammerhead or the T-turnaround designed,
Right.
I assume they're gonna build a house here at some point.
Yes.
So they're gonna be doing some site work and some construction. I mean, would there be, if they were able to leave this, would they give any consideration to making this large enough or maneuverable enough?
That could be the 16. Just-
You know, right in here, because then if
The
a
new
vehicle
part of
can
the
get
road.
in and you
Yeah, that
have some
would- this
maneuverability,
is
you
the-
might, that might be a
This is the area
compromise.
where everything slows down and has the rounded
Right.
edges and the,
I
you know,
mean,
that they want to
to
keep.
traverse in a
place.
straight line's one thing, but then to be able to maneuver, if you gave them some leeway up here, I think you could
Well,
probably
if
do
the-
something.
If the reduction were just up to the property line, if the reduction to, because that's all that exists right now, the existing pavement
Right, okay.
stops right here. Well, no, I'm sorry, it does continue. But the extension of the road,
I mean, if they made an allowance there, I think that could solve everybody's problem,
Right.
maybe.
that's very reasonable.
Do you see where I'm talking about?
So the result of that would be an adequate turnaround place at the
Still be at
hammerhead.
12 feet, but when they get up in there, it'd open up and they'd give them room to maneuver.
Two couple of short things. So, Mr. Grillo, your proposal is to allow the,
Yes.
12-foot width up to the
Up to the
hammerhead,
hammerhead.
or the
and
T-turnaround.
at the hammerhead be widened large enough to accommodate the turning of a fire truck.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Clegg?
just like to note that the large diagram says that the existing pavement is 13 feet wide, not 12.
That could be in a particular spot, Elmer,
It may
too,
be
but-
in a particular spot.
When we went up there, I recall that the pavement does wiggle.
It
and
varies a little
It
bit.
varies. It is, it's an old gravel road that was eventually somehow
Right.
asphalted.
That was never.
And when
that
the
was
water
never
mains were brought out
created
there.
under the authority of the planning board.
Right, that was predating zoning, but I know when they brought, and correct me if I'm wrong, folks, when they brought the water out to the island, that section of the road was repaved at the time?
Yes, they had to return it to the condition it was in when they bought the water lines. out,
Right.
And it was an old paved road, but they repaved it in 2003.
Okay, that's what I recall, right.
That's,
That was, the existing pavement was, prior to them repaving it, had a lot to be desired, but, yeah, so.
But this, I mean, I appreciate the being able to have the dialogue. That, if it was just waived to 12 feet up to that point, which is the Jones property line, and we're the 16 thereafter,
You know, that or, you know, if that's developed so it can actually be a turnaround.
well, that is to be built. And
Okay.
under your current decision, the pavement is to be 16 feet within that, and within that, it could remain that way.
Yeah.
The biggest concern is that stretch from Scraggy Neck Road up to the point
Right.
where it exists right now.
And that's, you know, less of a problem, actually.
And Mr. Grillo, do you have a,
I'd make the motion to give them the 12 feet wide up to the Jones property line, and then the T-turnaround be developed as this plan shows.
okay, and that would be probably, what, 50 feet on either side of the hammerhead?
it's a 60,
How much?
62. It's a 62 from here to here.
Okay, so 30 feet on either side?
While the measurements are on the plan there, it
Right.
shows us 62.
Yeah.
2 feet, yeah.
Okay, all right.
It doesn't have a width, I don't have a scale rule here.
Okay. So the proposal is to allow them to remain at 12 foot instead of the proposed, or the previously approved
What do you got there?
16 foot,
It's 40.
up to the Jones
That's
property.
the layout, but not the
Right,
pavement.
And especially concerning within the proposed hammerhead.
That to be, right.
Mr.
Clegg?
Chairman,
Yes.
before you get a motion
Yep,
in that regard, I'd like to go back to Mr. Fitch. your original proposal of having this thing 12 feet all the way,
Yes.
how did you envision a fire truck getting it, if it got in there, how did you envision it getting out?
The tunnel.
I spoke with the fire department, and they said they could do it. I mean, it was just a very informal telephone call. I was asking about the width of vehicles and whether that could be done. And it's flat at the hammerhead that's there. Because we're not talking about, we didn't want to waive construction of the hammerhead. It was just the pavement was going to be narrow. But I hear the discussion here tonight, and I respect it.
So they answered your question that they could turn around in the hammerhead as shown on the plan?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And Mr. Fitch, were you reflecting when your conversations with the fire department, were you talking about the specific site, or were you talking about in general?
I didn't show that, they weren't looking at this plan.
Okay, so it would be a general question.
It was a
Could
general
you-
discussion, right.
Could you traverse a 12-foot?
Right, and with a hammer, with a turnaround, can you make it? And the answer was yes.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's the can-do attitude, I think, probably showing through. It's been pointed out, and I understand this break and compromise, I wish I'd thought of it myself. It's reasonable.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Doucette,
And
you had a
it-
question?
I don't want to mandate it, but I'd like to have consideration for the tree at Scraggy Neck and the driveway coming in, just to look at that, if that's possible.
It is.
Just
It's
to make that
possible.
turn as a secondary, that's the only,
At the back driveway, at the top.
yeah.
Back driveway, it's-
So you take a look at it, that was the only, we had a
That was
very
the only
difficult time
corner.
coming out of there.
Right.
I can't say it was impossible, but it was pretty, real tight
Yes.
as it existed on a summer day.
As I recall, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, it wasn't a 3-point turn, but it was more about a 10-point turn.
Yeah.
Because when we came out to Scraggy Neck, tried to turn right to go back out to the causeway, and you had to go forward, back up, forward, back up.
That's a
So
common
it-
sense request.
But that tree would certainly help, but again, it's not within the confines of this, so it would be just a suggestion on our part. But,
Thank you.
So,
Yes.
Mr. Grillo, you have a motion. Sure. Go right ahead.
I want to make sure I'm following you. The remand was essentially limited to the question of whether the board would not require the widening of the road as shown on the plan. The only issue before you is whether you want to reduce that widening, which we support, but there's nothing in the remand that goes beyond that issue.
And I
So-
just said that.
Okay, I'm just, again, I'm not sure I'm
I'm
following.
was a
I'm not
suggestion.
mandating that
Okay.
gets removed. I'm asking you to look at that as a consideration.
Just a suggestion.
Okay, thank
You're right. The only concern we have is in this particular vote. Mr. Grillo, let me just recap. You would agree to go back to the original 12-foot width up to the 62-foot section within the hammerhead?
Correct.
Okay.
The property line.
Which is
Property line.
up to the property line, but it goes back a little bit. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Do I hear a second on that?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further comments, questions? No? Okay, this is a remand, so it's just a straight roll call, straight vote? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, John.
Thank you very much.
Once you get something on that, could you just kind of give us an update once
Everybody
the
happy?
hammerhead area is straightened out?
It's subject to a covenant,
Right.
and
So
so you'll be able to.
Would Mr.
Prove it.
Wilder have to,
This was it. We all agreed that
Okay.
your decision, this is not appealable, and the board will review it when it's finally constructed.
Is
That's what
everyone
I-
gonna be happy on your end?
thank you.
There you go.
Okay. Let's see, informal discussion, we took care of that. Item number 7, public hearing for a zoning change in the bylaws, downtown district signage change. Because there's nobody here from the sign. Corinne?
I gave you all a packet.
Yep.
Kind of walk you through it. The We'll start, you wanna start, which
plans
one is
back?
first?
You can,
Ian
that's
has
one.
his- Ian, they give you one, I gave them all to her.
Okay.
She has them all. Ian.
Yes.
Yes. They can afford it.
You didn't get one of these when they went around?
That one? No.
See, I guess that's-
Oh, I didn't get that either.
They were being passed around. How'd you guys do this?
I don't think
two
I
over
have
there,
that
too.
one.
That's all right.
It's got all the color photos.
That's all right. I don't need them.
Okay,
Go ahead.
okay, this is Article 6. Where are my notes? Oh, here it is, back here. Okay. Sorry. Is, in the process of the Design Review Committee doing review of signs in the downtown, as it exists today, the maximum height is 6 feet. We're finding that very restrictive for some businesses, especially on the outlying areas of Main Street. So the suggestion is to increase that to 8 feet with the ability to go to 12 depending on the characteristics of that property and the vision and the view of driving to that site. So that is the recommendation, is to increase the minimum height and to give a definition of the height and how it's measured. We see that people become very creative trying to get the height. So instead of them, creating a big, one suggested a mound of asphalt. And that's not very attractive. So I think what we want to do is to be able to give the ability to give a nice looking sign, give them a little bit more height, and give a definition of where that height is coming from.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Seems to make sense. Mr. DeSantis?
Yeah, I think a lot of the stem as well from Bay, was it Bay Village at the beginning, when he wanted to get the height, couldn't get the height because he wanted to have the clear view. To do that, he had to put the signs down to the ground, so your visibility down the street was limited or very restricted. So he wanted to get that clearance off the bottom so you can have a good visibility down the street.
Yeah, the site triangle was going to be blocked because the sign had to be so low
Yeah.
that on that site, because it comes out on Washington,
Right.
that anybody taking that right couldn't see this way. So it made sense there, but their hands were tied and not
Oh,
being able
absolutely.
to do that. And there's some, it's basically the gas stations that are having the issues, because they not only have to have their sign, but they have their pricing under it, so it adds to that sign that they have, and that's where it starts to obstruct the view, because it has to be lower.
Okay.
And then one other question, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind. In the changes, it says that the Design Review Committee may allow up to 12 feet. Should it be the planning board?
No, because
No.
the signs are not reviewed by the
Okay.
planning board. They make the recommendation to the building
Okay, very
inspector
good.
to
Thank you.
issue
I
that
just-
permit.
just wanted to make sure.
So, yeah, because otherwise that'll be another step. There's already complaints it's
Right.
taking too long to go
I
through
agree,
design
I
review.
agree.
And that would
Just
just be
checking.
an additional step that would just make it more difficult.
Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Clegg?
Does the owner of Bay Village know that this change
Yes,
is
he
in
does.
process?
He's on hold right now.
He's on hold?
Yeah.
Okay.
Questions or comments from the audience? The big audience? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve this.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? The ayes have it. Next on the agenda is a public hearing for change to zoning bylaws, change in height in B3 district.
Mr. Chairman, can we go to number 9 first?
Okay.
Make a motion,
Skip
we
to
take
n-
9 out of order.
So moved. Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 9, public hearing for a change to the zoning map, change a portion of land from B2 to B3.
Yes, you have a copy of the map in your packet, but this is just for the audience. This is the area of the old Canal Side Commons site is what we're talking about here, is proposing a change. The front portion of that property is B2. We're proposing to change that to B3 to make it a continuous flow. We only have one B3 zone in the town of Bourne, and this is where it's located. You'll see I have a kind of a colorful zoning map here, and this is the B3, this is the B2 as it exists. As you can see, it's the only one in town. And this is, the B3, what it does is really reserve it for commercial development. It's going to take the residential component out of it so that you can have more commercial. It doesn't totally eliminate the residential, because you could do residential open space community on 10 acres in a B3. So if a development did come and they wanted to have a residential component, they could do it under an open space community. So, but you can't just pop up single-family homes in this area. So, and I know that the town is looking for economic development, and I think this helps that area to maybe attract some economic development in that area. So, what I'm proposing is to change that. And that will do, the next article, if we can kind of blend them together, I know you might want to take a vote separately, but changing and adding the footnote R, which says, on a special permit, the planning board can increase the height in that area. So what we want to do is to add the B3 to that. Right now, we allow that in the B1, which is kind of ironic because we have no B1s in the town of Bourne. So this would give the ability in the B3. And this area, there's no really, the abutters to this, it's totally commercial. It doesn't abut any residential neighborhoods. So it seems to be a good fit there, so.
Thank
The
you,
first
Corinne.
one is the map change, and
Okay.
then it would be.
For the map change, that is, again, number 9. Any questions, comments from the board? Mr. Clegg, did you have?
Is that piece of property entirely in B2 currently? Or
No,
is it
it's split.
So the
Currently
back
split.
half is, the back part is
B3.
B3.
The front part right
Part
now
is B2.
is B2. So what I'm proposing is to take this,
Yeah.
to follow the right-of-way
Got it?
here.
All the way down to the circle
yes,
and down to the
and to change
solar
that
farm.
to B3.
Okay. What's the total acreage in that piece of property, just roughly?
90, I think it's about, huh?
180 acres?
I'm not sure.
If you took the two parcels together, I believe it's in the 180, 187
It's pretty large.
acre.
Okay, so it's large enough where this 10-acre open space
Would
thing
be
could-
applicable.
Could be
Correct.
applicable.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? Oh, Mr.
Another
Clegg?
question. On the, so in the town of Bourne, if we, I'm sorry, I'm asking a question about the height. I wanna-
Okay, let's
hold up
let's
on
do
that.
the map change first, and then we can get to the height. Any other questions or comments on the height, I mean, here I go, thanks. The map change, portion of land from B2 to B3, as outlined by Corinne.
Mr. Chairman,
Anybody from the audience?
just like to make a motion we approve.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion made is second. Further questions, comments? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Going on to the zoning bylaw height change in the B3 zone.
That is Article 7. If you look at Section 2500, the intensity of use schedule, you'll see that I'm showing what's proposed, but right below that is as it exists today. If you look under B3, there's only one superscript as N. I'm proposing to add R. And you'll see the footnote below that, as proposed, is adding that B3, so it reads, except building height in B1 and B3 zoning district increase of allowable height by special permit by the planning board.
Okay. Now, Mr.
Now, my
Clegg.
question, given that there are no B1s in the town of Bourne, so this would be the only one where the planning board could approve a height extension beyond what's spelled out in the table in the bylaws?
No, all of downtown is like
All
that.
of downtown, right?
And that's where the B1 converted.
B1 used to exist in the
And it got
downtown.
converted to downtown.
The,
And as I recall, when we changed that for the downtown district, when we rezoned that, that was a unanimous approval at town meeting, that by special permit, we could
Correct.
exceed the height, so.
I did
little
discuss with the town engineer about removing that B1 designation, but his suggestion is that we leave it in there in case we do want to do some B1s around town, maybe in a Sagamore, because it's really, a B1 is consistent with like a village business. So, but it's a little bit more, you can allow a little bit more in a B1. So before we eliminate it, we'd like to kind of research it to see if it's really going to be usable in the future.
Seems to make sense to leave it in there, just in case there's.
It's not hurting anything.
Mr. Chairman?
Further questions, comments?
Yeah,
Mr.
I've been
Sid?
working with Corinne off and on. We've been working with a hotel motel, trying to kind of change, and one of the concerns that I had was to be able to give some relief in certain aspects. I think this would be consistent with what we have been talking over the past few years. And again, she gets overwhelmed by the requests from the town and other departments. So I'm still working on that, but again, I'd like to continue looking at that. But I think this is a right step for the town to go forward with.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Mr. Mulvey?
I have some deep concerns with this particular article, allowing evidently an unlimited height by special permit of the board. The issue came up fairly recently downtown where there was a proposal for a 70-foot tower, and before that, the assisted living exceeded the permitted height at that time by a couple of feet, and that caused a problem to go back over the plans. Now, this is all in the light of a planning board chair and a leading member of the committee board openly at a meeting here, as we are now, admitting openly that they were proud pro-business advocates, and that offended me because this board should not specifically at an open meeting state as a fact that they were pro-business. At that time, I wondered how a board that is elected, that's supposed to represent all the factors of a town, could its leadership say we are pro-business? How could they then look at something that comes before them unbiased if that issue comes up of being pro-business versus another position? And I personally would like to see the height of the downtown village particularly be kept at least as what is mandated now, with no special permit allowing downtown village being converted into a canyon with the development that is now proposed down there. I can see 4 stories, but I know one member of this commission, not too far in the past, said that they would like to see unlimited height. You know, you get into shadowing, you get into air currents, there are a lot, as well as ambiance. And we are still under the I'll ask Corinne, the document that the town and the county both approved, the open, not open space. Local comprehensive plan, thank you. We are still under that. The town voted it into effect and the county ratified it. And one of the premises of that is growth, yes, and I agree with that. Growth, you can't stop growth, but appropriate growth. And that document stressed in numerous ways growth, but try to maintain the village atmosphere and ambiance.
And unlimited height does not agree with that. So to give this board the right to have an unlimited height by special permit or variance or what, I would not agree with at this time because of the attitude demonstrated by a majority of this board in the past. Thank you for the opportunity to express myself.
Thank you, Jim, for your comments. Anybody else have anything on it?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I've been poring through the zoning bylaws as we've been talking here. If you're going north on MacArthur Boulevard past the Waterhouse Road, or actually Clay Pond, everything is B3. We just talked about eliminating the small section of B2 that did remain on that side. On the left-hand side, everything is B4. Similar type development, I would think, would be applicable to both sides of that highway. And in the zoning bylaws, the height restriction on B4 is 40 feet. So why would we, instead of making this open-ended, why wouldn't it be more appropriate to make it, the B3, the same as B4, and that is a 40-foot restriction?
Again, we're talking.
That would put the same requirement on the right-hand side of MacArthur Boulevard as there is on the left-hand side of MacArthur Boulevard.
You put a height restriction on that, you might squash the guy that wants to come put that
There's
nice
already-
convention resort center over here. You know,
Well,
that's
right
gonna
now,
require more than a-
right now, he's restricted to 35 feet.
But he can get, with this approval, he can get a special permit for more height by us, the planning board.
If we go
Approve,
forward
correct,
with what's being suggested.
right.
And as Mr. Mulvey points out, that's an open-ended type of thing, and the people across the highway have to live in a different set of rules.
Well, we can change the other side of the highway to B3. It's just that one spot we're looking at from going to B2 to B3. You know, the one spot we're talking about extending the height,
What one spot?
B3.
The B2 to go to B3, they already have that B3 there.
Well, I know that.
But you're talking, so you want
But
to,
you're talking about changing all B3s.
That's the only B,
That's a stretch from Clay Pond Road all the way up to the bridge.
through the town dump.
the town dump, and also
Yeah,
there's
so,
no,
all right, so I would agree, pretty much effectively, that then, I'd like to know who.
And there's a solar field, I'm sorry, there's a solar field just south of that
Yeah,
as well.
right. Who requested this change?
It was requested by a potential developer, asked if the town would consider it through the town administrator and the chairman, myself, board of the, I don't think it was the
Okay.
Board of Selectmen
So
per se, but it
it's
was
potential developer
a
for the-
potential developer, yes.
For the plot of land that we just
Correct.
changed from B2 to B3?
I just would like to
And
clarify.
is that parcel of property still owned by Stop and Shop?
Yes, it is. They are
Were they the
actively-
ones that asked for it?
No, they're actively marketing it.
Okay.
Just a couple of clarifications, especially to Mr. Mulvey's comments. And I may be wrong what he was saying, but he was talking about the downtown, not agreeing with the downtown having unlimited height. That is already in place. That is not on the table today. That has already been voted. That has already gone before the Cape Cod Commission under the Growth Incentive Zone. So that's already in place, and that is not on the table today. What we are talking about is on the other side of the bridge, up on the hill, and that is the only section that we're speaking about. To Mr. Clegg's question about both sides of MacArthur's Boulevard, what you want to look at is that B4 and what surrounds that B4. What does it abut? It abuts residential, it abuts other properties. That B3 across there, you're abutting the base. You're abutting a school. You're not abutting residential, you're not abutting other businesses. You're talking about a really kind of seclusive area that could have a major impact for the town of Bourne. So that is one of the things that I don't think you want to really restrict that area so much, say, because if you're trying to bring businesses in, they're looking, like the business that talked to us, is that we need that height in there to get the use that we would like to get in there. If that business never comes to town, we've now created an opportunity for other businesses to come to town in that very secluded area, other than the downtown, which we're trying to make our economic engine. MacArthur's Boulevard on the going south, it's basically built up. Can it be redeveloped? Yes, it can be redeveloped, but I don't think you want to have unlimited heights on that side of MacArthur's Boulevard.
As a taxpayer, I don't want to have unlimited height anywhere, my friend. I mean, and if you've already put it in downtown Buzzards Bay, I can't do anything about that, but I can speak about spreading that any further in the town. I mean, we drive across the bridge now and we look at the towers of those wind turbines from the bridge coming the other way. What are we going to see? An 80-foot resort development up on top of the hill? I don't think we want to see that either. There's got to be some reason here, and I just don't, I didn't appreciate it at first, but now I appreciate the wisdom of Mr. Mulvey's remark. And that is, you don't want to leave it open-ended.
Okay. Anybody else? Mr. Mulvey, go ahead.
Quite correctly, my primary focus is on the growth in the village under the so-called industrial incentive zone, which seems to leave it wide open to destruction of the village atmosphere. But I'm also concerned with the future character of the town as a whole, whether it's MacArthur Boulevard, Scenic Highway, still land to be developed. I'm considering the future character of the town as a whole. I'm particularly interested because it is of immediate concern of the village. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you. Mr. Doucette?
As we see on Main Street in Buzzards Bay, the village character of buildings collapsing is not the future I'd like to see in this town. So I'd like to see some redevelopment. I'd like to see some incentive.
Thank you. Anybody
I don't
else?
see the connection myself.
Unlimited height, downtown, canyons. Would you trying to extend it now to B3?
The one thing that I look at, and I'll address Mr. Mulvey's concern that I said that I was pro-business. And in a way I am, because the town is in dire straits right now. We had a recent 2.5 override, which failed. We cannot live within our means right now and still offer the same services and whatnot to people. The only development that does not impact local services is usually that of business. And if you build houses, that comes schools and other services that the town has to provide. Businesses take care of them themselves. They take care of their own trash, they take care of their plowing. And so for the town, yeah, I am pro-business. But I can still read the rules and interpret them. And as you saw tonight, we sent Mr. Battles back to the drawing board because he didn't meet the regulations. So I didn't just give him the permit, or we didn't just give him the permit because he's a nice guy and he's a nice business and he's been in town for a while. We looked at the rules. And I think we can do that objectively and reasonably going forward. I am in support of this. I think this is, as the commission said, this tract of land is the last and the largest tract of undeveloped land on the Cape, not just in the town of Bourne. We have an opportunity to try to attract some business into town.
Yeah, let's make it attractive to the
And that could
development.
make it attractive. But that's, that's interpretation by each individual in the town. And when we go to vote on this at town meeting, the voters will have a chance to stand up and heard their voice on it. But go ahead, Mr. Mulvey.
Thank you for your latitude, Mr. Chairman, allowing me to speak. And a little bit broadly, growth and taxes are important to the town, but it's the type of growth. You have downtown Hyannis on one hand, and you have East Wareham as another case. And growth alone leads to taxes, perhaps. How much is another question, but it does not come without a cost. You
There's a
have
cost to
roads,
everything. I agree
You
with
have roads, you have sewers, you have water, you have the electricity. So you do have expenses that come with growth, and also inappropriate growth leads to certain parts of the population not gravitating to it except to come in and use that growth and leave. And the whole area has a tendency then to deteriorate. Thank you.
I mean, you could argue that the entire Cape falls under that category. They all come here, they use it, and then they leave. The other thing I look at, Jim, is what properties do we have left in town for development that could bring tax relief to the citizens that live here already? And there aren't a lot of places. There are a couple.
How about Main Street?
There are a couple. Main Street, one of the hindrances we have there, and it's being addressed, is wastewater, which I've been talking about for 15 years. We knew that that was going to be the linchpin at some day, and we are working towards that. The town is working towards that, and we're fortunate in that science has caught up to how do you deal with wastewater. And because that science caught up, we may be able to develop wastewater in the downtown area at a much less cost than we originally anticipated, even 10 years ago. But we have to look at the other tracts of land in town which could potentially prove huge tax relief to the town, which we need the money. We need the money to provide all the residents with the services that they're experiencing today. And without increased growth, without new revenues, it's not going to happen. I think that this zoning change gives us an opportunity to look at a proposed project coming forward. We can still review it and still open to this board's review, but we need to have the opportunity for potential developers to come here. Right now, there's a little bit, but there's not a lot. This is a big piece of property.
Mr. Chairman?
On that, Mr. Clegg.
I agree, it's a big piece of property, it's a pivot point in the future of the town of Bourne. I was just wondering, in your mind, and perhaps I would extend the question to Mr. McKenzie with his developing experience, how high a height limit do you think you could live with in a resort development in a location like that?
Well, when we look back, when we first changed the zoning in the downtown district, a number of us who were on the board, Dan, myself, we talked to other developers, not just Mr. McKenzie, but other developers. And there were a couple of things that they indicated to us was that Main Street especially, they were behind the 8 ball, that they're in a floodplain, that requires certain changes. They would have to extend the uninhabited spot another 16 feet over the existing grade. And so what do they say? Well, if you only got 35 feet, or maybe 40 feet that I can go up, what does that give me? And for them to develop and build in a floodplain, they needed relief. And we told that to the townspeople when we went to town meeting a number of years ago. And as I said, that vote was unanimous to allow us that type. What specific? I don't know. We'd have to look at each project like we do today. Some projects fit in certain zonings and some of them don't. Sometimes they want to cover the whole lot and other times they don't. So I think you have to look at each one individually. Mr. Doucette.
Yeah, and Mr. Clegg, I think with the special permit, to grant that, we have to see, they have to prove to us what that would need to get it, so we'd be able to grant it. It's not just unlimited, here you go. They have to prove the cost, and they're concerned with the cost, and we have to weigh it as a board.
Right. And also a special permit requires supermajority of this board.
So if we did not approve this motion as it's cooking up, and a developer wanted to come in and put a resort development up there, no residential, or no detached residential anyway. And he wanted to exceed the 35 feet that's currently in the B3 wording, what would be his avenue of pursuit?
ZBA.
The ZBA?
And the AO can only extend it certain, there's a
The
formula.
ZBA, they would have to, it would be a variance, and they have to prove a hardship. New development, it's not a hardship, because you can develop it. So that way, if they can't prove a hardship, which more than likely they couldn't under the commercial development, then that business would not be able to do what it needs to do there.
So we had a Perry Avenue development come in front of us. They wanted to put a 7-story condo complex fronting the canal. You think we wind up having a 7-story complex over there on the top of that hill across the bridge?
Again, that would be subjective. That's a guess, it's subjective. I mean, we don't know.
Of course,
There's
we haven't
nothing
approved-
before us.
We haven't approved, no one has approved the
Right.
7-story proposal alongside the canal yet.
Well, we already have a water tower there.
Right.
Mr.
I
Chairman?
don't know how high that is,
Well,
but
it's probably about 150.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah,
We can
structure's
balance
there,
the
right?
height to get more green space, so that's what you're looking at. So we get more open space, more green space in that piece of property as well, so, we have to balance it all.
Also, remember in the downtown, because I hear a lot of people talking about that tunnel effect, that if all the, buildings in the future
We
would be
design
raised
that.
up. We also have what we call as the step back, that you cannot put that height directly on Main Street. That, I think it's a 30-foot step back, so you would have, a certain height, and then behind that would be higher, so you don't get that tunnel effect.
As I recall, the zoning said that we could go up on frontage on Main Street, they could go up 2 stories, and they had to step back 30 feet before they had any height increase from there. And again, we don't know what might go up there.
but the board's gonna have the discretion also.
We'd have the discretion. If the plan looked reasonable and we weighed all the pros and cons out.
Mr. Chairman,
Sir.
if I recall, Keystone requested 72 feet, and there was an issue, and I assume it was reduced to 70. But that was the building that exists now by the post office.
Correct. I think the reduction wasn't by our request. I think it was themselves that changed it, and that was because of the roof pitch. And they found that they could do it at a less, still make. Okay, anything else on this? Anybody else? Zach, anything? No? Professional opinion? No? Okay, we have a zoning map change from B2 to B3 in the area outlined, and this is Article what?
No, we're just changing the height,
Height, this is the height, yep,
number 8.
number 8. And I have a motion, do I have a motion on that?
No.
Need a motion to approve that?
Chairman, I make a motion that we support the zoning change from the height for the B3 zoning district.
Okay. Motion made and seconded, further discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
The ayes have it. Let's see. Fees, that, item number 10, fees, annual review of the planning board fees. You all got that in your packet. Entertain a motion to approve the fees as presented by the secretary.
Mr. Chairman, this is just keeping us current, correct?
This is keeping us current, and as I recall, she looks at the surrounding towns.
Yeah, I look at surrounding towns and we're pretty comparable to them. And the only thing I'm really changing is the mailing always goes up. So instead of constantly changing the fee schedule, I just changed it, to reflect that current mailing fees.
Okay.
So, but everything else is right on par.
Okay. Again, I'll entertain a motion to approve those fees as
So moved.
outlined. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Nothing else is on the agenda.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Do I hear a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.